Hello, how would you like to harvest a whole load of new potatoes during the hungry gap this year? If you have a little bit of indoor space and a bit of forward planning, you could be harvesting your own new potatoes as early as April. I'm Liz Zorab and this is Byther Farm. Now the hungry gap is not an hour before the next meal time, although I'm sure Bentley would tell you it is. It's a period of time that gardeners refer to when most of your winter crops, the things that you've had standing in the ground all winter, they're all used up. But it's before you get that really good first flush of new crops coming in early summer. So to show you what I'm doing, I'm going to use this bed. I'm going to use a no-dig method, which means I'm not digging the soil now. I won't be hilling up the sides and the potatoes will be very easy to harvest. I can just plunge my hand in, feel the potatoes and pull them out. But I'll show you that in a couple of months. In the meantime, let's start with this. Now you're not going to get great big main crop sized potatoes, but you are going to get little potatoes, almost baby potatoes. And what could be nicer during the hungry gap than to have your own homegrown fresh potatoes. And to choose what sort of seed potato to use, well, in the UK you're going to use one that's labelled first early, and elsewhere that's likely to be a determinate potato. And what that means is the potatoes are going to grow fairly quickly. And the stem will come up and wherever, so this is my potato tuber here, and this is the level at which the new potatoes will form. We've got cats stomping around in the kitchen, sorry about the extra noises. So, whereas an indeterminate potato, which will grow later in the year, the tubers will also form off the main stem. But for these early potatoes where they're not going to be in the ground for all that long, you want something that's going to produce its tubers sort of next to where the seed potato is. So first earlies or determinates. And very often they'll be labelled with how quickly they will come to maturity, and you want something that will produce small potatoes in 8 to 12 weeks. During 2024, in this bed, I grew butternut squash and they were really successful, so I was very pleased about that. And then in the last couple of days I have come through and I have topped this up with, well, this is the soil from molehills. And I know people find moles a real nuisance in their gardens. I kind of celebrate them. They do all sorts of good for a garden, and it's also a clear indication that there are plenty of worms and other insects in our soil. Moles are rarely seen creatures. We often see their evidence as molehills in our gardens and in fields, but we rarely see the animals themselves. We've been scooping up molehills and putting them in the wheelbarrow and bringing them down here. Now I do know that this bed is going to get absolutely covered in weeds because this is full of weed seeds, but that's okay. I can come in and weed those out. I won't find that a problem at all. And then in this bed, which has had tomatoes growing in it for 3 years in a row now, the soil there was really compacted where I'd walked on a lot, so I did actually use a fork just to go in and lift a little bit just to break up that quite clayey compacted soil. And then on top of it I've put dried leaves from the peach trees in the polytunnel, and I've also brought down some used duck bedding. It's been stacked for the best part of a year now, so that's looking pretty good. And I've also brought some molehill here as well. Now if I get the energy, I will top this bed up with molehills. If not, I will just plant my seed potatoes straight into that. And the idea is you plant your seed potatoes under cover, so polytunnel or greenhouse, in mid-February, early to mid-February. I've chosen to alternate the spacing so there isn't a potato immediately opposite the one on that side, just because I feel that gives them more space between them. I don't know if it actually does, but in my head somehow that's what the maths does. So they're about 18 inches apart down the row, and the rows are of a similar distance in the bed. So that's my potatoes in. Now I'm quite happy just to pull up a little bit of soil around them. I'm not really covering them. I just want to make sure that they really are touching the soil nicely. There we go. Oh, maybe this one a bit more. Give it a nice cosy bed. Once your seed potatoes are on the soil, you need to cover them over. You could use bought-in compost, homemade compost, molehills. You can use a whole host of coverings, and in fact I've done lots of experiments to see what would be the best sort of mulch to put over the top. And if you're interested in seeing the results of that experiment, I'll leave a link in the video description. And today I'm going to use straw. Now in the past I've used hay, and I certainly prefer using hay, but what I've got is a straw bale that was in the polytunnel that was being used for sitting on while I was teaching courses here. The bottom of it has got quite wet and is starting to decompose, and so I'm going to use that spread out over this bed to cover these potato tubers, and it will exclude the light while they go through their first stage of putting down roots and growing. If you have horticultural fleece available, you can lay that over the top of your potato bed, and don't forget to weigh it down at the sides and the end. Alternatively, you can create your own growing tunnel, and I do this by using recycled sections from a children's trampoline, and I knock those into the ground. And then I'm using recycled MDPE piping, which I got by asking at a building site. There were some offcuts lying around, and I just asked the builders if I could have the offcuts. If there isn't any building work locally, you can buy MDPE piping. They usually make you buy an enormous roll of it, so maybe club in together with several other gardeners to buy a roll, and that way none goes to waste and it makes it more cost effective. So once I have all the hoops in place, I then drape the horticultural fleece over those hoops. And I carefully gather the ends in, and I like to tie them with a cable tie. It's a reusable cable tie, and pin them down with a pin so that the ends are held firmly into the ground. You will need to keep an eye on moisture levels because you're now growing inside every couple of weeks just to see whether they need watering or not. I make sure I've written down exactly what I've sown and when, which allows me to build a picture year after year of how well various different plants grow in the garden. Because I couldn't find a journal that did exactly what I wanted it to do, well, I created one for myself, and it's also available to buy. You can find it on bytherfarm.com and also on Amazon. And then I hold the sides down just using pieces of wood, but you could also use stones. I'm really looking forward to having homegrown potatoes in just 2 or 3 months' time. But if you want to know what else you can sow in the meantime, well, I've made a video, and so I'll leave a link on the screen and also in the video description. And if you click on the link, it'll take you straight through to that video.